The BMW M5 is one of the greatest four-door super sedans known to the automotive world. The history of the model line, though mechanically not perfect, never seems to disappoint its faithful fan base. To the untrained eye, the M5 may look like a regular car, but if you look long enough, the details start to scream at you. The bigger and wider wheels, the lowered stance, and the monster quad exhaust. If none of that catches your eye, then the blue and red stripe on the M5 badging is the checkmark. Yep, you got yourself a 560 horsepower daily driver. We have a car that needs no introduction, and then we just walk off.
Hey guys, it's Henry.
And Nelson.
And you're watching Flat 6 Media.
And today we have a car that needs no introduction.
Well, except it's an M5 though.
No, this one.
Kidneys? It just tells you
Normally talk about, the aesthetics and the functionality of these cars. From an aesthetic point of view, obviously this is a bit of a refined cabin, more than likely someone that is of an older generation in age, and that's what BMW shoots for. In terms of what's available currently, you can see that this is a previous gen car and that the systems in it are from another time. 2013 is that long ago. But this could use some updating, and Ruben is actually the guy for that.
Hey, I'm Ruben.
He's actually known for retrofitting new technology into his car. Because right now, yes, you're looking at a dated screen, you're looking at a dated navigation layout where Waze is obviously better, or like a Google, obviously better. But it can be remedied if you have the skill. Even though I've only really had Audis and Hondas in my life, still enjoy the simplicity of the gauges of this generation car, because you still get analog gauges that are nicely lit, some good color in the tacks, and you get your, all the inputs that you need. You got an RPM stack and you got your miles per hour stack, not some digital half orb thing that's moving in opposite directions like new ones. I think we're gonna get on the highway and get on it. Here we go. We're already at 60, can you imagine that? I think I'd be doing 100, even going to the grocery store. But even on the highway, I have to say this thing is very nicely behaved. It's really stable feeling, very direct. The pedal feel is just unbelievable. I mean, the second you step on it, you're just gone. It doesn't feel like too big of a car, I see everything around me nice and easy. It's not imposing in any way. The steering wheel is really nice and chunky. You got some nice curves around where you need to have your fingers in the steering wheel. It's nicely sized. It honestly gives me Porsche vibes. You got your paddles here that I haven't really used because the transmission is doing a really good job of shifting for me. And this is a dual clutch transmission. So it's a little bit sturdier and it shifts a little heavier than you're used to in your standard mushy transmissions. This is definitely a sport feeling transmission. This seat is so comfortable that I just honestly, I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get back into my car. This thing is averaging about 20 miles, a little over 20 miles to the gallon. So the weight of this car is probably about 4,200 pounds, and you feel it in the way the car fits around you, but it doesn't really come through in the steering, and it doesn't really come through in the suspension. For this being a 2013, it's really holding together well. Overall, driving experience, I'm loving this. It doesn't really feel too foreign. It was really easy to get used to. The controls are perhaps a little bit on the slightly overwhelming side if you're not a BMW driver. For people that are picking this car up, more than likely it isn't their first BMW, so they're well used to the climate controls, the way the radio operates, as well as all of the individual tuning that you can do to an M car. The suspension is tunable, the steering is tunable, the way the transmission behaves, everything in this car is absolutely tunable. So, what does that mean? There is a steep learning curve. If you're not a BMW person, spend some time with the car before you pick up something like this, because from the looks of it, it can look overwhelming, but it's actually very easy to operate. Just do your homework.
That's a great question. My first intro car to the BMW world was an E39 540i. So naturally, after having the 540i, I couldn't get my hands on a E39 M5, so my next step up was the E60 M5. But I chose the F10 this time around just because the E60 M5 is more of a project car, and the F10 M5 is a little more button up and more reserved and easier to make it more of a weekend warrior as opposed to a constant project like the E60 M5 was. So like anyone's gonna tell you, the first thing you want is maintenance history on the vehicle. I personally wanted a car sub 60,000 miles, so I researched what the options available for the F10 platform were. I actually found my car 3,600 miles away, and it was a perfect candidate for me. And I also made it into a cool trip. I flew out there and picked up the car and drove it home 3,600 miles. So firstly, you want to get all your regular maintenance out of the way. We're talking about all fluids here, DCT, transmission fluid, differential fluid and oil changes, power steering flush, brake fluid flush. But on top of that, you also want to do your critical items like your spark plugs, fuel filters, and fuel injectors. This is a big item on these cars. So you want to get all the things that are critical out of the way, like your belts and pulleys, thermostat and coolant. And then you can go over to the modding side of things and get a little more creative. So if you want to get some insight into maintenance and mods, check out my channel, which is rtuned, link below. All right, so let these guys get back to messing up my seat settings in the car.
Okay. Today, guys, I have the joy of driving a 2013 BMW M5. Now, this M5 is considered the marquee sports sedan because you get a ton of power, a ton of space, and it is still considered practical. The thing is that with all of that power, you still have a whole multitude of options that BMW gives you to control it. And honestly, for the average driver, you're probably going to need it. Reason being is that an M5 pushing somewhere around 600 for some modified reasons could be a little bit of an overkill. It can be an overkill because for the everyday, just going to work, just driving the kids, maybe the date night, do you really need to go this fast? No. Does it feel great? Absolutely. Why get it to begin with? Because you might be trying to overcompensate in some instances, but ultimately it's to have that thrill of driving a very fast, powerful car. The capacity, the availability of the power matters a lot. This is not a cheap car, so it's called how much is it worth to you? When you hear the sounds that are coming from the front, you will turn heads. Maybe not for the reasons of just the fact that the car looks great, but the fact that it can be obnoxiously loud. The fact is that a car like an M5, it is the standard. So at the time of release, this car ran about 140,000. Now, if you're a family man, you've got even one kid and a dog, that's expensive. You need to really consider what it is that you want in life.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always.
But from a cost perspective, are you getting a lot out of it? Absolutely. You're getting plenty of space. It's still a sedan. It's still got comfort mode. One of the things to consider is that it's a rear wheel drive vehicle. So she will very quickly kick out on you whether you like it or not. And it takes a lot of control. So you have to respect the horsepower. You have to respect the law of the land. And when you're in the Northeast and the type of roads that we have, honestly, are you really gonna get to open it up that often? Not really, unless you go to a track. Driving this car around for a couple of hours, you become one with the vehicle. The road feel is great. You really know what it's doing at all times, and that's because it's tuned for that here. This being a 2013, is the car aged out a little bit? Absolutely. But even with the creaks and the cracks that you're getting all over the place, you can't pull away from the power. You can't pull away from the experience of just feeling this drive. I'm actually enjoying it. The more I sit in it, the more I drive it, and it does make me want to do more. With expensive cars also comes expensive maintenance. So truth be told, while there are challenges with a vehicle like this, would I still get this thing? Absolutely. Might I deal with some maintenance issues in the future? Absolutely. Will I take care of it? You know it. It's all about being capable. Honestly, the first time I touched this exact car, I was incredibly overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed because it was all the power, all the buttons, all the tech, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I'm techie. So what I wanted to do is what I'm doing now, which is just getting some attention, and it feels great. Yeah. And 60 comes so fast. Maybe a little bit too fast. I think what's also interesting is you get a slight little nod from other BMW drivers when they know what's up. So I gotta go and do dad things as usual, but I'm just gonna toss the keys over to Nelson and let's see what he has to say.
So, you know, all those things I feel that BMW has sort of remedied in their newer models, obviously. You know, and this being a 2013 will use some updating, and Ruben is going to be the man for that, and I can't wait to see it and test it when he's done, because more than undoubtedly going to get a lot of looks of people wanting to do similar things. And you don't really see it out there on YouTube, so I'm excited to see what that's going to draw in the future. So, this is Nelson from Flat 6 Media, and this is a 2013 M5. Let's see what the future brings with this car. See you later.